Welcome to the Sweet Slumber Podcast, the good, the bad, and the sleep deprived. I'm your host, Meredith. I'm here to teach you about my supportive, nurturing sleep solutions for infants and young children. We'll also be discussing the highs and lows of motherhood, what will help you feel whole and rested, and I'll explain what you can do now to help your little one thrive in every way for many years to come. I am excited to help you experience more fulfillment as a mother. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sweet Slumber Podcast. I'm thrilled to talk to you today about a new topic that I can't believe I haven't covered yet, children's sleep. Let me introduce you to my new friend, Maisie, who's going to share some insight about her approach to improving sleep on the show today. Hi, Maisie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being on the show. So we met on Instagram and we just started chatting on there, and I was thrilled with what I learned about Maisie. It's just kind of happened naturally that I asked her to be on the show because I just was really excited to share her with you guys. I think that she'll be a breath of fresh air to you who have children and want to learn more about sleep. I work with children with sleep too, but it's just such a small number compared to this being your specialty that I really wanted to showcase this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Maisie, and I'm sure she'll expand and tell you a little bit more. She's a family sleep specialist and parenting coach. She runs an international practice offering individualized support to families and is the founder of Hello Bedtime, an online group program for kids. Hope she'll tell us more about that. She specializes in working with toddlers, preschoolers, and school-age children using a heart-centered and holistic parenting to sleep framework. She has a BA in psychology and spent many years working as a psychiatric nurse before turning to private practice. She is multi-certified as a holistic sleep coach, infant sleep educator, and peaceful parenting educator with additional training in cognitive behavioral therapy. I just cut that short. Therapy and developmental theory. She lives on Vancouver Island in Canada with her husband and twin boys. That's impressive. Don't be embarrassed, because I know you worked hard to get all of that training and education and experience.
Yeah, it wasn't a straight line. I joke sometimes that I'm a professional student.
That's perfect. That's awesome, because that really sets you apart. It makes you unique and gives you more to offer, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So how old are the twin boys now?
They're 6. They're 6 and they just finished kindergarten. And yeah, it's been a bit of a transition getting into summer mode, but we're here.
Oh, I know. I feel like it took me this whole last month to get used to things. When did your summer break start?
Oh, it just started last week. We're just a week Wednesday. So it's, yeah.
So you definitely need a little time.
Yes.
So one of the things that I remember being impressed by when we were messaging on Instagram was your extensive training. You mentioned training with Gordon Neufeld, another lady who I can't remember, but that was exciting to me because I love Gordon. I love his work. And yeah, I'm just excited to learn more from you really today.
Yeah. I think you're talking about Dr. Laura Markham. She's who I have my peaceful parenting certification with. Yeah,
Yes.
her books are amazing. Mm-hmm.
It was a program that you took with those two?
Yeah, certification program. Yeah.
Very good. Yes, you are a wealth of knowledge. It's just amazing. So where was the beginning? You were studying psychology first,
I
and
studied
then you went
psychology
to
first.
nursing?
Then I went into nursing. It was hard to get a job with just a psychology degree. So yeah, I went into nursing, and then I had my twins, and I didn't really want to go back to work. And so I was just kind of like lazing around with a friend one day where we were, just daydreaming, like, what could we do instead? And we were both kind of talking about little businesses that we could open up, and sleep came up. And so I had already read like a ton of books on sleep when I was pregnant because I was terrified of having twins and not being able to sleep. And I don't know, it kind of fit. I ended up taking a certification course, and it went okay. I kind of on the side for a while because I was still nursing. And then, my twins became toddlers, and like just everything went to crap. And I was like, angry all the time and tired all the time and just like trying to fall back on my training and like what do I do? How do I fix this? And just like coming up at a loss. And it kind of just led me down another obsession of trying to just kind of figure out kids, because kids sleep is so different than babies. And yeah, there wasn't a lot of people talking about this, at least, not in with recommendations that I would have wanted to try with what I know about, brain development and psychology and all these different things. So yeah, I kind of just I made my own thing, and here we are. And it's amazing. It's amazing seeing the light bulb moments that come into people's heads when we talk about some things, and like, oh, I didn't think about that like that, and just like the transformations. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to ask you what got you started and focused on children's sleep. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
And I can understand too, making your own thing. If there isn't a good fit out there and you're having to teach yourself as you go anyway, then that's what you do, right?
Yeah, well, and people don't talk about that. Like my twins, they slept pretty decent as babies. Like, yeah, sure, they woke up, but like not terribly. They were pretty normal sleeping. I mean, it was hard having two, obviously, but nobody talks about how like actually some kids sleep worse than when they were babies. Like, cause that was me. My twins slept worse once they hit like 2, 3, 4. And yeah, so that's where I come in.
Yeah. I actually need to have you jump into my Facebook group, I think, because that's what I see a lot is parents saying, my kid used to sleep well, or my
Yeah.
newborn is sleeping fine, but my 2, 3, 4 year old is keeping me up.
Yes.
And I don't remember if I told you this, but when I go to events, everybody tells me that their child is in their bed and there just was no solution for them that fit or felt right. And
Yeah.
so all of them are just co-sleeping out of, habit or survival. And I always just try to help them feel better about that because society makes moms judge themselves and feel like they're failures for doing that when they
Yeah.
probably have the healthiest child that's thriving, right? It's just how poor their sleep is for so many years that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So, what, well, I guess some of the things that we talked about with that we would love to discuss today are just like some of the common problems that come up for families. You agree?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
where would you start with that question posed at you? What's the most common?
The biggest thing that, parents come to me for is like wanting their kids to sleep independently, and that can look different ways. Like you mentioned before, kids crawling into parents' beds, so wanting to get their bed back and not co-sleep anymore. It could look like wanting to be able to, leave the room at bedtime. Most parents stay in the room while their child falls asleep. It's not necessarily something, I mean, some parents are happy to do that. They love the cuddles and their kids fall asleep quickly and easily. But if you're listening, I'm guessing that's probably not your kid. It probably takes forever. Or, you're doing the lay down, close your eyes, go to sleep. I said no talking, over and over and over. And, yeah, I think those are the main things that I hear is, kids that can't settle and need you to stay, need you there either at bedtime or overnight or both. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. See that a lot. Bedtime is a huge problem in and of itself, right?
It
There are
is.
people who have the worst bedtimes. They hate bedtime. They dread bedtime. So yeah, I see a lot of that. And then a lot of people just have no idea how to handle the night thing. They've tried the super nanny approach, or they're too tired. The little child just sleeps in their bed or on their floor because they're just like, I can't do that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so hard.
yeah.
So do you have any tips or insight on what's going on with, I don't know, bedtime and all those night wakings?
Yeah, well, kids just want to be close to us, right? Like they want to be, we're their safe place. We're their special person, and they want to be close to us. And so I think we forget that sometimes, and we just are so tired and just so done at the end of the day that we want to break, that we forget that like actually like this is the time that our kids kind of are drawn towards us, because it's the one time of, well, I shouldn't say the one time of the day, but it is a significant time of the day where they have us, right? Like we are with them, we are by their bed. There's no other competing things, needing to make dinner and all this kind of stuff. And so they want to be near you, and you are not just their safe place, but you're also the big kind of component in helping them to calm and helping them to get into that sleep mode. So many kids, they can't turn off. I mean, think of how hard it is for you to turn your brain off when you get to sleep. Like a lot of people will like scroll their phone for a bit or read or watch TV, kind of like trying to like, I mean, those aren't necessarily good things to do, but like we all do them to try and like, transition from awake to sleep mode. Kids have a hard time with that. That's what they use us for. That's why we read stories and all of this kind of stuff. And without doing that, it's hard for them to transition to sleep. And one of my mentors, Lindsay Hookway, she talks about not being able to sleep. You can't sleep when your foot is on the gas pedal. And so if you're in go mode, you gotta, put your foot on the brake before you can go to sleep. And so that's where staying in the room is helpful. That's why parents do stay in the room, is to kind of help kids, calm down, be able to close their eyes and settle, and help sleep happen.
Yeah. And I love that you started this conversation with how kids want to be with us, because I think that's my favorite thing I learned from Gordon Neufeld was about separation anxiety and how we're not built to be separate, but it's just ingrained in our society that's normal, and that's maybe even we're entitled to it, but it's
Yeah.
not even natural. So I talk to a lot of parents about this.
Yeah,
You too.
it is very common, parents thinking that there's something wrong with their child, that they've got separation anxiety because they want to be near you at bedtime, that you can't leave the room, that they cling on to you, right? I really don't like this term. Almost all kids need parental support at bedtime. Like we're talking like 90, I want to say it's like 96 or 97%. I can't remember the statistic, but like need parental support at bedtime. Like to be able to just say, okay, come give me a kiss and a hug. Okay, go brush your teeth, get your pajamas on. Good night. I'll see you in the morning. Like that's super, super rare, right? And like I would say half of families stay with their child while they're falling asleep as well. And so this is not separation anxiety. This is normal behavior for kids. And where it is maybe potentially separation anxiety is if there's things happening during the day as well, right? Like, do they freak out if you go to the bathroom and don't tell them where you're going? Do they have problems going to daycare, or having other people take care of them during the day? Things like this. When if it's stuff that's going around throughout the whole day and not just bedtime, then potentially it is separation anxiety. Otherwise, it's probably just normal behavior. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't move past it. I mean, this is what I do, right? I help families to get that independence, and to be able to walk out of the room and whatnot. But it is very normal for kids to want and need your support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is an area that I help people just at least think about how to bridge that. Do you have any advice about bridging separation?
It's being there, it's being connecting, it's having your consistency so they know what to expect. Not so much with like, first we're going to brush our teeth, then we're going to go pee, and then we're going to put pajamas on. I'm not talking like consistency like that, or like making sure you're in bed every single night at 7:30 or whatever. It's more so that, they know what to expect. Like they're not guessing, is who's putting me to bed tonight? Is tonight going to be the night that mom stays? Or is tonight going to be the night that mom yells? Is tonight going to be the night that, I get cuddles or not? Some of these kinds of things, that knowing what to expect is like the big piece, I think, that is important for kids. And then just you need to just go slow.
Yeah. And I also love what you just said, because it makes me think about consistency as a parent too, the presence, the giving them the time, offering what that child specifically needs. So maybe in the morning, one of your children needs to cuddle. So give them that time, right? Or children who, well, all children need time with their parents, but helping them think of those things that they're going to be doing the next day. I always tell parents, don't focus on the morning, because we don't want them waking up at 4 for some exciting thing. but but if you regularly have things that you do together, even if it's just sitting down playing cards or Play-Doh or whatever it is, that's a consistent piece in their life, then help them think about that as they fall asleep. I love that.
Yeah, I like the what are we going to dream about? And can I come visit you in your dream? And like plan like so it kind of turns into like a verbal bedtime story where you can kind of talk about and set the stage for like a dream. And it's interesting. You can kind of see the brain development shift because you know young kids have such magic. They call it magical thinking, where they don't really connect the dots and things. And then as they get older, somewhere between 5 and 7, there's that brain shift. And so we were doing that often where we were talking about our dreams. And then one night one of my sons says, Mom, I can't choose my dreams. And I was like, and his magical thinking is gone. Yeah. Yeah, but we're lasted.
So cute. I like that term, and I like what you said because the longer we can keep things magical and push away that logic side, it will come. The logic side will come. I promise you. Like
um,
my kids are so literal. It's painful, and I didn't realize the teens were that way until I had a couple of them. Now I'm like, oh, it's painful. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
it. I wish I could last forever. The magical thinking. So, there's a couple of a few terms that are really common, and I'm wondering if you can kind of explain what those are. Let's start with curtain calls. What does that mean, and what does that look like?
Curtain calls. Yeah, that's like when your child is like, um, curtain calls and callbacks. It's like when your child either comes out of the room and had like, sneaks down the hallway, like, I need another hug, I need some water, I need to go pee, or when they just like uh, don't come and get you and they scream at you to come. I need you, come, mom. Or you forgot to tuck me in, or you forgot this, when they just, it's a million excuses. This is the stalling thing. And it's super common. I think there's either kind of like there's two ways. You either stay with them till they fall asleep. I mean, you can still get resistance in that sense where they're delaying, kind of closing their eyes. But like if you don't stay, if you leave, this is where the curtain and calls and callbacks come from. They're seeking you out. They're trying to, bring you closer. And this is where people call it attention seeking. Oh, they're just seeking your attention. Just ignore them. They're just trying to stay up longer. And I don't agree with that. I mean, yes, they're seeking your attention, but I don't see it as being like a manipulative, negative thing. I see it as being a sign, like this, that there's like looking at like what's underneath the behavior, right? Why are they doing this? Why are they seeking your attention? And looking at that piece, I think is what I would do. So I'd be like, okay, well, maybe are they not tired? Did we successfully take their foot off the gas pedal before leaving the room? Right? Like, and looking at some of these other things, more so than just seeing them as being, a pain in the ass, attention seeker kid, which is kind of what the default is. And like, I'm guilty of this too. You're sitting on the couch, you think you're good, and you're like watching your TV show, and you're like, go to bed, right? Like, it is frustrating. Like, I get it. Um, but yeah, we do have to have that reframe of thinking like, okay, why do they keep calling us? Why do they keep getting out of bed? Why can't they fall asleep alone? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember my girls. I have three girls. They're 2 years apart in a row, and they shared a room for a while, and it was a nightmare. We had like a pull-out bed and a bunk bed, so there's like three girls in a row, and it was just giggles and talking and calling mom back every night, and it gets old, and you don't always keep your cool, and you don't always understand. And so I think that probably the majority of that time I didn't understand, and I was frustrated, and I just thought they were being naughty, or like, why won't you settle down, instead of thinking, like you said, have I slowed them down? Have I helped them get sleepy? Have I given them the attention they want? But I remember reading and learning back then that they're calling me back because they don't want me to leave. They just want to be with me more. And that helped me so much, even though it doesn't necessarily go away instantly, because that you just
Yeah.
feel better. Like, humanizing sounds kind of bad. Like, of course they're human, but in a compassionate, I'm relating to way, like, okay, okay, you want your mom. That's actually really sweet. And
Hmm.
it really made a big difference when I purposely would check on them and be, those curtain calls on purpose, like planning
Yeah.
that, going back, popping in, and then telling them I'd come back again. Like they would just fall asleep waiting. It was such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. It can also backfire. Um,
That's true.
I hear this from kids, and families will say, well, we tried this, but the kids were mad the next day. You didn't come back. They're waiting. You can break their trust, right?
Yes.
Um, and so it's not as easy as just coming back and hoping that they fall asleep while you're gone, right? But that just speaks to the again, trying to find the why, right? Because it's not something that they're doing intentionally, right? Like, oh, if I ask for water and a snack and go pee, I'm going to get to be up for an extra 10 minutes. Like maybe when they're like 10, they can think like this, but like, you're like 4-year-old, your 5-year-old's not thinking like this. And so, thinking like this helps kind of prevent those like I call it the whack-a-mole situations, right? Where like if you don't solve the problem and you set a boundary, you are not having any more water. That's it. You're done. You're not having any more potty breaks. They're going to start doing something else, right? Like, and if you get that all solved, and if it was say connection that they're needing, or if it was something else, they're gonna start acting out in the day, or they're gonna wake up in the middle. And I've seen kids start to wake up in the middle of the night when they don't get what they need at bedtime, and so yeah, yeah, it's kind of like it's a whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's all
Not as
connected.
simple as you think, but I mean, it can be. But
No, it's not simple. Yes, there are those rare cases. I'm just so curious about some of your beliefs and your approach. Like, what pieces did you feel like you needed to change from the information that was out there for parents? What made you decide to create your own, I guess, approach?
I feel like I do everything almost like a complete opposite or 180 from what, standard practices out there, like sleep training or cry it out is the most researched method, even and it's not I mean, it's not so much like just close the door and leave them till morning. Like that is very researched, but it's not as well practiced anymore. But like you can't do that with a kid. They're just going to get out of bed, right? And then so that's like they have all these other like fail safes. Well, if they get out of bed, just bring them back to bed a million times and ignore them. Don't give them what they need. Don't give them what they're asking for. They don't need the water kind of thing. They already had water. Remind them they had water before bedtime. Like all these things, like again, like if they're going to find something else. If that need doesn't get fixed, they're going to find something else. And then it's like, well, if they keep coming out of the room, if that boundary doesn't work, then hold the door closed or put a lock on the door or put a gate on the door. And like that's just, I don't know, like that's just doesn't sit right with me. Like we shouldn't be ignoring kids. It doesn't, it kind of reflects on where they will only feel worthy of our attention, worthy of love when they're behaving, right? It kind of gives that flavor of it. And where is if they're not behaving, then I don't want to be around you. It's not a good feeling because usually that strategy is combined with you hold the door closed if they're banging or screaming or yelling, and when they get into bed and they're tucked in, then you can go give them a hug and a kiss. And I don't know. I feel like we should be loving our kids all the time, right? And yeah, it's yeah. Yeah.
I
And then they bribe them, then bribing comes in, right? If we're for families that like, yeah, I don't know, I can't for dragging them back to bed isn't working. I can't hold the door closed. I can't even imagine a gate or a lock. I'm gonna use a reward chart. And I call it bribes because that's essentially what it is. And that can work beautifully in the short term. It really can for a lot of kids, particularly older kids. But short term, that's the key thing. Like that's another thing that families come to me all the time. Well, rewards worked, but now we're in this other stage, and so yeah, it's all of these. Okay, that didn't work. It created a problem, so let's fix the problem with something else. Oh, that didn't work. It's the whack-a-mole, right? That's the common theme is the whack-a-mole, and so my answer to everything is the opposite of ignoring, which is connection, is finding ways to um, either bring in more connection or kind of bridge to the next connection, where you help your child focus on the next time. Bridging is like when you help your child focus on the next time that you're going to see them. Yeah, sorry, that was a lot.
No, I
Went all
just wanted to hear
a little
more.
there.
I wanted to hear more because it was a kind of a heavy question. I asked you about problems that you saw and then what you do differently. And so, yeah, no, I actually keep going. I want to know, yeah, what your beliefs are and what does work. So I know you're not going to give away all your tips and secrets because have a livelihood here, but is there any other insight about what does work that you haven't covered? The connection is huge. Bridging is huge.
Yeah, and boundaries. Uh, most A lot of parents have really crappy boundaries, and
Yeah.
like I do too. It's one of these things that is just you can't ever get it 100% right. You got to think of it like a teeter totter, right? Like you want to be in the circle of security. They call it bigger, stronger, wiser, kind. That you want to have the balance of being the firm, confident leader, but you also want to have that kindness in there. That can be tricky to get right, especially in this generation where so many of us are wanting to do differently than what our parents did, right? We don't want to necessarily put the lock on the door or scream at our kids to get in bed. We don't want to be taking away privileges and things like this. And so or spanked or all the different things that happened to us as we were kids, we want to do differently. And so sometimes you can be a little bit afraid to set the boundaries. And then there's like this, well, what if they really need the water? What if they really need this? Like, what if I don't want them to be the bed? Maybe they really do need to have the toilet. And so it's finding ways to have those boundaries in a way that respects your child's needs, but also, gets you what you need to, because we can't, if you don't, you got to have a scale as well for your own well-being, right? So like there's like the bigger, stronger, wiser parenting boundaries kind of scale, but then there's also like, what do I need? Because you can't just give everything for your child all the time, or you're going to be sitting in the room for 2 hours in the dark resenting and hating your life, right? Like it's you got to have a balance of both. So yeah, it's confidence for the child, building confidence, boundaries for you, which is usually confidence for you as well. And a big piece of what I do as well is self-care, because if you are too tired to make a change because you know that it's going to make things a little bit longer in the short term, right? It's going to be a little bit harder. Usually when you make change in the first short term, you're never going to do it, right? So kind of like setting things up and breaking things down and building you up to make the time and create the space for you to be able to make the changes. Yeah, that's a big. I mean, it's no one thing, but that's kind of the basis of my approach, anyways. And making sure that you have the right bedtime. Oh my God, I can't even
Yes.
remember. Can't even believe I forgot that. That's like number one. Like if
Yeah.
if it's the wrong bedtime, it doesn't matter how amazing your bedtime routine and how loving it is. If they're not tired, you can't make them sleep. And if they're not tired, they're going to get bored. And so they're going to come out and get you, or, if they're really overtired, then their foot's on that gas pedal and it's stuck right there in cruise control and you need to get them off. So yeah, right bedtime. Yeah. That's probably the first thing that I would do
Yeah,
actually.
I actually agree. It's funny that we forgot that because there's just so much, right? There's so many things. And actually, I think that's one of the hardest things for parents is typically when you have a young either toddler or child, there is so much going wrong with bedtime and nighttime that you don't know where to start. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that. The number one thing, and I see that too when I go into people's homes, they don't even notice their child's sleep cues. The child's been yawning for like an hour and a half and they're just still playing. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this is so bad.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see it a lot.
Or sometimes you do notice, but you're in freeze mode, like fight, flight, freeze mode. Like, and I'm guilty of this, where like I know it's bedtime, but I can't get my ass off the couch. right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm just secretly hoping my husband will do it, or like, yeah. And then you're like, oh crap, like I just spent a half an hour on my phone or whatever it is. And so you may see the cues, but ignore them because you can't get going, right?
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. I like that. You can tell how much more you work with children because you keep bringing up things that I'm like, oh yeah,
Hadn't thought about that.
I know about this more as a mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also just got out of the trenches, right? My boys are 6 now, so they're sleep pretty good now most of the time, but that need for connection never really leaves you. So
Yeah. Well, honestly, I can hear your vast background as you speak because you understand the psychology side of things so much. I think that's been really helpful for you to be able to come up with these new solutions and different
yeah,
approach. It's
yeah,
so helpful, so important. So I love that you're sharing your perspective because most people don't have such a well-rounded background, right? They're coming in with what they've been taught and not seeing past it, um, and maybe not sensing the need for something different.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think when we first talked, you brought up the thing about not being into reward charts and stickers and all the things.
Yeah,
that, that's I think that's important when you realize that you're if you don't want to condition your child, you don't want to teach them about conditional love, right? You don't want them to always be, am
yeah,
I good? Am I bad?
yes,
It's
yes.
helpful
With
to,
all our people pleasers, are you a perfectionist people pleaser? Well, there you go. It's from that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Or I think people go to the other extreme and they're like, I can't please anyone, so I'm not going to try. We don't, we, let's just put that whole mentality aside, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think that's tricky too. It's a whole nother subject as well.
yeah.
Sure. So thank you so much. You've given us some really amazing insight. Is there one tip or takeaway you could give my listeners? Something that they could, well, you talked about the timing of bedtime. So if you want to expand on that or something else?
I think the biggest thing is more of like a mindset. And if you can have this mindset, it will kind of set forth everything else. And that's that you need to give your kids so independent sleep is not something that you can teach. Okay. It needs to be nurtured, it needs to be experienced, right? They need to have that practice at having these skills, falling asleep alone, falling back asleep alone, staying in their bed all night. And to have that practice, they need confidence, right? But you need confidence before you can take those first few steps, right? And so that's where you come in. They get the confidence from you, right? And so you are their training wheels, you are their life jacket, you are the way that they feel comfortable taking those first few steps. And so thinking about how you can help them get their first few steps in, because if you skip the life jacket, it's like throwing your kid in the pool. And like what's going to happen, if they've never swam before, if they've never been in a pool or the ocean or lake before, they're going to go under the water and you're going to be really hard pressed to get them back in the water again. They're going to be like, hell no, right? And so just having that mindset that uh, be their life jacket, be their training wheels, and go slowly. It's going to be way more effective, and that's the piece that most of the methods are in today. Is that they're not looking at any of the underlying thing, and they're skipping the training wheels, and they are going from zero to independent sleep overnight and firm boundaries. And this is what it is because I said so. And it really doesn't teach sleep. It doesn't teach sleep. It teaches them that you have boundaries and but doesn't mean that they're actually sleeping, right? Yeah,
No, I can relate to that a lot. And I agree with you. I have the exact same approach when it comes to, you just say it so much better. Building confidence and connection. And I always call it trust and security that I want the children to have.
yeah,
That's the part you can teach through your behavior, through your actions, and being
yeah,
trustworthy. And also just let go sometimes when your kid's showing you through their body language or even verbally that they need you there. It's not the time to think
Yeah.
they're manipulating you or you're falling apart and you're so exhausted and you have to do something. I know parents feel that way. It's real,
Yeah.
but I think the part we have to let go of is thinking that we're going to fix this. We're going to fix their sleep because I'm so tired. No, no, no. What you need to do is just focus on that relationship and what you're building and what's going to lead to. So I love helping parents focus on
Yeah. I agree. I
optimal
agree.
development, that optimal like growth and the way that you're setting them up forever for life through the short, difficult period is so worth it, right?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to that, because I can picture moms listening here thinking, yeah, this sounds all very lovely, but what the heck am I going to do? Because
Right. Right.
I'm losing my like, yeah, like I just can't do this anymore. Like for me, like if I'm telling somebody to like, you just need to have more connection, they're like, I don't have anything more in me to give.
To give, right.
And
Mhm.
so like, it is possible to, support kids to sleep independently. Like you don't have to like sit here and silently suffer if you're finding this struggling a struggle. Connection is the answer, but there's ways to do this that actually, you create momentum. It's not meaning you're sitting back and waiting, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But like if you need change to happen, there are steps you can take. Yeah, I just want to say that because like I hear that sometimes it's like I can't, there's no more I can give, right? And I feel that some way too. There's only so many hours in a day, right? Like especially from stay-at-home moms, like I'm literally with them all day long. How can I give them more connection, right? It's yeah.
Listen to her. She has twins. She knows what she's talking about. I have five. I know what she's talking about. No, I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking that when I first started talking. Um, that I'm not saying that this is forever. I'm just saying that there are certain times when kids are screaming when you put them down and you leave that you need to read between the lines and see what's going
Yes.
on, probably development, and that is temporary. And there are things you need to do in those cases. Ask for help. You can hire help for that sort of thing, but when they're older, when they're children, that's more like asking husband, asking for grandparents. Or what's funny about that is that's the last thing moms want to do, but kids will sleep better with someone else. They
Yes.
do,
Sleep is
absolutely
the worst, right? Yes.
do. So don't hesitate. If you have someone you can ask for help. But yeah, then the long-term solutions are absolutely there. And we have so much compassion for you because we both know how tough it can be, whether that's from our own experience or seeing it.
Yeah.
Um, there's tools that work beautifully, really.
Yes.
You have your
Yes.
own, I have my own. And I love this. I love hearing your perspective and what you've seen and what works for you. Because I think that what I know and do is like tiny little percentage compared to you. So you guys don't sit on this. You have lots of help here. You can work with Maisie. So Maisie, tell us how people can find you. What are your programs? What are your resources? Tell us
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Well, I am on Instagram most, for sure. That's where I'm most active. I have a Facebook group as well, and that's called Gentle and Responsive Mamas Seeking Sleep and Sanity. And yeah, and of course I have a website. I've got all the things, the usual things. The main way that families work with me is through my signature program. It's called Hello Bedtime, and it is a high touch group program with a hybrid of some individual support in there as well. It's really the best of everything. there's videos, the ability to learn and understand like why your child's doing what he's doing and how to make the changes. And then there's the groups that you don't feel so alone, because I hear this from families all the time, like I feel like I'm the only one whose kid doesn't sleep, or I feel like I'm the only one whose kid does this. And so being surrounded by families that are literally in the exact same situation as you and seeing them succeed, it motivates you. Like my families in Hello Bedtime sometimes do better than my one-on-one families because they have that connection piece. I can tell them that I felt this as much as I want, right? But it's different when you're somebody else is going through it at the same time. So yeah, Hello Bedtime is my main offering, and yeah.
Awesome. Yay. So there will be some links here in the notes, so look for those. I love that. I love what you offer. That's the way you said that about feeling motivated by seeing others succeed. I've seen that a lot with group coaching too.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times families are, they just, I don't think that would work for my kid, or I tried it and it didn't work, or I don't know, like that sounds hard, but seeing somebody else like who's done it, or doing it together, it's just, I don't know. It's so powerful. Like it's so powerful. I'm so glad that I like took that dive into offering the group support. No
Yeah,
turning back now.
it is. Whether it's just knowing that other people are in that same boat, or it's seeing that they're ahead of you and they've gotten there, it's just powerful.
Yeah. And then it feels good to help others too, right? Like, oh yeah, that was me. And then you can kind of like reflect back at, oh wow, I actually have come far, right? Because
Yes,
sometimes
I
you
know.
forget, like you probably see this too. It's like you like, oh, I just, especially working with babies, like I just want to get like 4 or 5 hour stretch. Like I don't even need them to sleep through the night. But then you get them that 4 or 5 hour stretch, and it's like, well, maybe I do want to sleep through the night. And actually, can we work on naps too? And it's like, it doesn't matter how you come. There's always, always, always something else that you want to do. And actually, that's a good point. My Hello Bedtime comes with like unlimited ongoing support. Like it's a membership without the ongoing fees. And that's exactly why, because you're never done parenting. You're never done. There's always something. And the same is with sleep. And so you can reach your goals and then have new goals and come back and work on those. Or maybe, your kid gets sick, or, got some sort of regression that comes. You can start having nightmares. Who knows? There's so many things that can happen. You can come back and get support for no extra cost. So that's like the big, I don't know,
Yeah,
my hands. You probably can't see that, but like that's like the big,
that's a bonus.
big
That's a
selling point of
bonus.
my program. It's what makes it so 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 unique from anything that anybody else offers.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
so exciting. Um, so I guess this is a good place to wrap things up, but I have a feeling that I'm gonna have you back on the show for one subject or another. Oh, I know what I was gonna say is the parenting side of things.
We didn't even get into that hardly
It's
at all.
it's a can of worms and a rabbit hole, right? There's just so much to learn, and I forgot that that's something else that you specialize in, and I think that's really, really. I mean, that's a double whammy. That's a big bonus when you work with somebody with sleep, because the parenting side is probably not half the problem, but it's a big piece of the puzzle, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it goes
Yeah,
hand in hand. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So
Sure.
those are great reasons to go looking for Maisie. Okay, guys. So look for her at Maisie.Ruttan, and it's MAISIE.RUTTAN on Instagram, and
Yeah.
then MaisieRuttan.com. Same spelling, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come say hi.
I love this. And we're staying connected because someday I told Maisie she's got to have her own program for sleep coaches and consultants. And
One
that's
day.
now out in the public. So
One day.
no
Absolutely.
pressure. It's
Yeah.
just like law of attraction. All right.
Yes.
My hope. All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. I hope you learned some new things. You have some takeaways that were inspiring and motivating. So just watch for my next episode in about a week. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks, Maisie, so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Sweet Slumber podcast, the good, the bad, and the sleep deprived. Ready to understand your child better? Then take the sleep temperament quiz. Reveal your child's sleep nature and unlock the solutions to your exhaustion in just 5 minutes.